Make sure the Python node is wired up and selected, and let's increase the code window size. So let's just block out the code, just so you know what we're going to be doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to create attributes on the geometry. We are going to fetch the point groups on the geometry. Then we're also going to find a CBD group, set the color to red, and add it to a list. So what's going to happen is we're going to store the points of the CBD group in a list so that we can later work with that list and define which points are in or out. The final thing we're going to have to do is then set the block type attribute, which is an attribute we need, we're going to add in Python. Create an attribute called block type, and we're going to create one called point color, because we want to color them. We have no CD attribute yet, so that's what we're going to create. So we have geo.add attrib, and inside we're going to do who.attrib type, like last time. We've done this before. And then if we hit point, it should be able to, I am not doing this right. It's camel case. I was expecting this drop-down menu to come along. So make sure your syntax is correct, otherwise it would fail. So attrib is with a lowercase a, and then type will be with a capital. If you'd put a dot after attrib type, it will give you a list of what's possible. So we're going to go for the point. We're going to call it block type, which is a string. Because it's a string, we're going to put block type in between quotation marks. And we're going to initialize the string to just be an empty string. So it will contain no value. Then we're going to do the same for the point color. We're going to call it CD, which is the usual color attribute. We define it as a string again. And we're going to set it as a vector value of black. So we're going to initialize it to 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. Now also note that to be consistent with PEP 8 as much as I can, I put spaces in between the single values. This is much harder to read, right? If we do it like this, every single value is easily readable as a single value. The same goes for these double spaces in between what I would consider different sections of the code. It just sort of breaks up the blocks a bit more clearly. So now that we've got a point color and a block type, we should already be able to see that our node is not erroring. And if we go to spreadsheet, we should find on the points, block type, there we go, and a color attribute. And we can see that the block type attribute is being initialized to an empty string as we've specified. So let's go and fetch our point groups in the geometry. So this we can do with an inbuilt function. We're just going to call the variable point groups for us to work with in the code. And we're going to say is geo, so to access the geometry, dot point groups. And what this literally does is this fetches the point groups on the geo. And we're going to create a new variable as a list. So we're going to create a list with the name CBD underscore group to keep it consistent. And to initialize the list, we're just going to be opening and closing square brackets. That's the way to define a list in Python. And now we're going to have to do a for loop. For group, and this group thing is totally arbitrary. You can say for I in, or for X in, or for anything you want in. But we're going to, because we're working with groups, we're going to keep the code consistent. For group in point groups, and now we end with a colon. If group dot name, which is another function that comes with Python Hom that gets the name of each group, is equal to CBD underscore group, another colon, and 4 spaces indentation. Another for loop. We're going to just go crazy here for point in group dot points, right? So we want to access the points in the group. Point dot set attrib value. And which attribute are we going to set? We're going to set the CD attribute, and we are going to set it to a vector value of 1.0, 0.0, 0.0. We're also going to add that point to the CBD group list we've created. So we're going to say CBD underscore group, right, which is this list which is created. And we can say dot append, which is a Python function that appends to that list or adds to that list what you pass into it. Open and close brackets because it's a function, and now we type in what we're going to pass into it, and we're going to pass into it the point dot number. And that is a function that comes with the Houdini object model, which fetches the number of the point. So now we can see again that the code's not erroring, and in our viewport we see that the house blocks are actually black and the CBD blocks are actually red. So that means our code is working. So this is called nested for loops or nested if loops. It's basically if or for loops inside another for loop or inside another if loop. It's basically just a way of creating sort of a tree system down into the specific points you want to get. So let's just recap the code. We've created our list, CBD group, right? That's a list. And then we're going to say for group in point groups. So for each group inside the point groups variable, right? This gets all the point groups in the geo, but we've only got one. So we know that if we do this, we get the one we need. If the group name is CBD group, which is the one we've given it on this node, yeah. If your group name is that, then for each point in group.points, right, so every point in it, we're going to set the attribute value, CD, to red, and we're going to add your point number to this list. Because this way we can sort of store all the points that are now colored yellow in the view screen in our CBD group, and then work with them when we set the block type attribute, for which we'll write the code in the next video.